Tonight, we do not begin with a god, but with a silence, a darkness that does not threaten, yet does not comfort, a space between breaths where something watches, not with eyes, but with knowing. Before temples were raised, before names were given, there were thresholds. And at those thresholds, something waited, not to guide, not to judge, only to witness. And in that quiet watching, she began. If this kind of storytelling brings you inner peace, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it truly brings you peace. And let me know in the comments where in the world are you listening from, and what time it is for you right now. It's always strangely comforting to know who else is out there closing their eyes to the same story. So settle in. Let the world grow quiet, and let's dream together for a while. Before she was called by name, she existed as a presence. Not a figure carved in marble, nor a voice carried on wind, but something subtler, older. A tension in the air where one place became another, where light softened into shadow, where certainty thinned into possibility. She did not belong to the sky, nor to the earth, nor to the sea. She moved along their edges. In the earliest memory of the world, before Olympus crowned itself above all things, there were forces that did not seek dominion. They did not war for power or shape the world in their image. They simply endured. She was one of these. Not bound by ambition, nor softened by mercy. There was no need for either. She existed in the quiet spaces others overlooked, the pause before a decision, the moment between departure and arrival, the place where paths divided and no voice could tell you which was right. Even then, there was something unsettling in her stillness, for she did not change the course of things. She only stood at the edge of them and allowed them to unfold. Time passed, though time itself was still learning how to move. The great powers of the cosmos stirred, light claiming its place, earth shaping itself, the sky stretching into endless distance. And still, she remained where she had always been, not above, not below, but between, watching, waiting, as if she knew that one day the world would become a place of choices, and that someone would be needed to stand where those choices begin. And when that day came, she would not arrive. She would simply be there. Before there were gods who ruled, there were forces that simply endured. The world had not yet learned the language of power. Nothing sought dominion, because nothing yet understood what it meant to possess or to command. There were no thrones, no victories, no defeats, only presence, vast and unbroken. In that earliest age, existence did not move forward. It lingered. Darkness was not an absence, but a fullness, thick and complete, stretching without edge or interruption. Light, when it first stirred, did not oppose it. It seeped into it, quietly, as if uncertain whether it was meant to remain. There was no conflict between them, only a slow, almost hesitant unfolding. The cosmos did not speak, yet it was not silent. It breathed in a way that could not be heard, only felt, a weight pressing gently against nothingness, shaping it into something that might one day be called form. But even as form began to gather, it did not arrive all at once. It emerged in fragments, a suggestion of ground that was not yet solid, a stretch of sky that had not yet decided its height, depths that hinted at falling, though nothing yet knew what it meant to descend. The world was becoming, but it had not yet chosen what to become. And within that becoming, there were places that did not belong to any one thing. Not quite dark, not quite light, not fully formed, yet no longer formless. spaces where the world seemed to hesitate. If there had been a mind to witness it, it might have noticed these places as peculiar, thin, almost fragile, as though reality itself was pausing before deciding how to continue. These were the first thresholds, not marked, not named, but present. And it was within these thresholds that something began to take shape, not as a body, not as a voice, but as a kind of awareness that did not belong to the rest of creation. It did not emerge with force. It did not declare itself. It simply was. Where darkness softened but did not fade, it lingered. Where the first suggestion of light touched the unknown, it remained. Where the world divided itself into parts, it stood in what was left behind, not part of the division, but part of what division created. Time, if it could be called that, moved in uncertain currents. There were no moments to measure it, no cycles to contain it. Only change, slow, immense, and patient, beyond comprehension. From this change, greater forms began to rise. The vast presences that would one day be remembered as titans took shape in the deep fabric of existence. They were not yet rulers, nor even fully conscious in the way later gods would be. They were embodiments, weight given form, silence given structure. They held the sky because something needed to hold it. They pressed into the earth because something needed to give it shape. They did not question. They simply became what the world required, and with their becoming, something subtle began to shift. The world, once endless and without distinction, started to divide. Sky separated from earth, not violently, but inevitably. The abyss deepened into something that could be fallen into. Light and darkness, once intertwined, began to recognize themselves as different. Separation brought clarity, but it also brought distance. Where once there had been only continuity, now there were edges, soft at first, but undeniable. And with edges came something the world had never known before. The possibility of crossing, to move from one place to another, to leave behind what was and step into what might be. It was a quiet transformation, almost imperceptible. But it changed everything. For the first time, existence held within it the weight of transition. And it was here, within that weight, that her presence deepened. She did not rise like the others. She was not born in the same way. There was no moment of arrival, no instant where she could be said to have begun. She belonged not to what was created, but to what was revealed when creation divided itself. When the sky pulled away from the earth, she was there, in the distance between them. When darkness receded just enough to allow light, she remained in the place where neither fully claimed dominion. When the abyss opened, she lingered at its edge, not falling, not retreating. Always at the threshold, always where something became something else. She did not shape the world. She did not command it, and yet she was woven into every moment it changed. There were no eyes to see her, and so she was not seen. No voices to name her, and so she was not named. But if the world itself could have felt her, it might have known her as something both constant and unsettling. For she did not move forward with creation. She remained behind, and ahead, and in between. A presence that did not guide, yet was always there when a path appeared. A stillness that did not resist change, yet never changed itself. And perhaps, even in that earliest age, there was a quiet truth forming beneath everything else. That no matter how vast the world became, no matter how clearly it divided itself into sky and earth, light and dark, above and below, there would always be something that belonged to none of it, something that waited where all things meet, but nothing stays. And long before she would be called by name, she had already taken her place there. She was not born in the way stories prefer. There was no singular moment where the world paused to mark her arrival. no cry that echoed through the forming heavens, no shifting of earth to acknowledge that something new had come into being. Her beginning did not break the silence. It settled into it. By the time the Titans had taken their place within existence, vast, patient, and immense, the world had already begun to understand the shape of permanence. The sky no longer drifted uncertainly. The earth no longer hesitated beneath itself. The abyss held its depth with a quiet certainty. Things had begun to remain. And yet, even within this growing stability, there were spaces that refused to be claimed. Between the great bodies of the Titans, between their domains, their presences, their silent authority, there remained something unformed. Not empty, but untouched. It was from this untouched place that she emerged. Not as a rupture, but as a continuation. Her lineage would later be spoken of in names, of Asteria, of Perses, threads that tie her to the great fabric of Titan kind. And it is true, in the way that all things must eventually be made understandable, that she was born of them. But her nature did not rest easily within that inheritance. The Titans were beings of weight. They held the world steady by simply being what they were. Each one carried a domain that did not waver, a piece of existence made constant through their presence. She was not constant. She did not hold. She did not anchor. She moved where things shifted. If the Titans were the pillars of the world, then she was the space between those pillars, the unseen tension that allowed them to stand apart without collapsing into one another. Her mother, Asteria, belonged to the night sky, not the bright certainty of the heavens, but the quieter, deeper expanse. The part of the sky where light did not dominate, but flickered gently against the vast unknown. From her there came a sense of distance, a quiet awareness of what lies beyond sight. Her father Persis carried a different weight, one that would later be remembered as destruction, but in those early moments was something more fundamental, a force of undoing, of endings that make space for what follows. From him there came an understanding not of death, but of transition. Between them something unusual took form, not a being of dominion, but a being of passage. She did not inherit a realm, she inherited a condition, to exist where things begin to change. In the presence of the Titans, she was neither lesser nor greater, but she was different in a way that could not easily be measured. They were vast and unmistakable. She was subtle, almost elusive, and yet there were moments, quiet, unspoken, when even the Titans seemed to acknowledge something in her that did not belong to them, not power as they understood it, but inevitability, for even they, in their permanence, could not escape the quiet truth that all things, no matter how vast, exist in relation to something else. The sky touches the earth rests above the abyss. Light meets darkness at every edge, and at each of these meetings there is a boundary, a place where one thing must give way to another. She belonged to that place. She did not command it. She was it. There was no ceremony to mark her growth, no moment when she stepped forward to claim recognition. She did not seek to be known. But as the world continued to shape itself, her presence became harder to ignore, not because it grew louder, but because the world itself began to depend on what she represented. The more defined existence became, the more necessary its boundaries were. And boundaries are never still. They shift, they blur, they demand attention. A horizon moves as you approach it. A doorway is both entrance and exit. A path divides, and in that division, something must choose. It was within these subtle movements that she lived, not separate from the world, but woven into the moments where it could not remain the same. The Titans did not resist her. They did not embrace her. They simply allowed her. Perhaps because in some quiet way they understood that she was not something that could be denied. For even in their vastness, they existed within a structure that required division, and division always leaves behind a space that cannot be filled. That space was hers. And so she remained among them, not as a ruler, not as a challenger, but as something older than conflict and quieter than authority. A presence that did not assert itself, yet could not be removed. A daughter of Titans, and yet not entirely one of them. For while they stood as the world's foundations, unmoving and immense, she waited at the edges of those foundations, where stability falters, where certainty softens, where something ends and something else, not yet understood, begins. And even then, before her name was spoken with intention, before offerings were placed or stories were told, she had already become something the world could not do without. Not a force that shapes destiny, but the place where destiny changes its direction. There are births that illuminate the world, and there are those that deepen its shadows. Hers did neither, or perhaps it did both, in a way too quiet to be noticed. To call her the daughter of Asteria and Perses is to give her origin a shape the mind can hold. It places her within a lineage, anchors her to names that can be spoken, remembered, and passed from one voice to another. But lineage, in her case, is less a beginning, and more an echo. Asteria, her mother, belonged to the night, not as darkness alone, but as the sky when it withdraws from certainty. She was the expanse where stars flicker without promise, where distance stretches beyond comprehension. There is a loneliness in such a sky, not sorrow, but distance, a silence that does not ask to be filled. From Asteria came a kind of knowing, not knowledge as possession, but awareness without grasping. The understanding that not all things are meant to be reached, and that some truths remain most powerful when left untouched. Perses, her father, carried a different presence. Where Asteria expanded outward, Perses moved inward, toward endings, toward the quiet dissolution of what once held form. He was not destruction in the violent sense, but in the inevitable one. The fading of fire, the collapse of what can no longer stand, the moment when something ceases, not in chaos, but in completion. From him came a different kind of knowing, that nothing remains unchanged, that every form, no matter how enduring, carries within it the certainty of its own transformation. Between these two, distance and ending, she took shape, not as a balance, but as a continuation of both. She did not inherit the sky, nor did she inherit the force of undoing. She inherited what lies between them, the space where something is not yet gone, but no longer what it was. The moment when distance becomes separation, the instant when ending begins, but has not yet completed itself. She was born into that moment. And perhaps that is why her presence never settles. Even among the Titans, whose existence is vast and steady, she carried something that did not align with their nature. They endured. She shifted. They defined the world by holding it in place. She revealed the world by allowing it to change. There is something unsettling in such a presence, not because it threatens, but because it cannot be fixed. It cannot be pointed to and named with certainty. She is there, and then she is elsewhere. Not gone, but no longer where you expected her to be, and yet she does not move. It is the world that moves through her. Asteria's distance lives within her, not as isolation, but as perspective. The ability to stand at the edge of things and see both what is and what is not yet. Perse's quiet endings live within her, not as destruction, but as transition. The awareness that every step forward is also a step away. Together, these inheritances do not rest easily. They create a presence that is always aware of what lies beyond the moment, and always tied to what the moment is leaving behind. To exist this way is not to belong fully to any place, not to the sky, not to the earth, not to the depths below. She moves along their edges, not because she chooses to, but because that is the only place where her nature remains whole. Among the Titans, this made her something both familiar and distant. She was of them. And yet not entirely. There were no disputes over her, no attempts to claim her as one of their own, in the way they claimed dominion over sky or sea or stone. Perhaps because they understood, though they did not speak it, that she could not be held in that way. She was not a territory. She was not a force to be directed. She was a condition that existed whether it was acknowledged or not. A boundary does not need permission to exist. A threshold does not require recognition to be crossed. And so she remained, growing not in power as the others did, but in presence. As the world became more defined, she became more necessary. For every boundary that formed, she was there. For every ending that approached, she lingered just before it. For every beginning that hesitated, she waited within it. She did not create these moments, but without her, they would not feel the same. There is a difference between change that is forced and change that is witnessed. She did not force, she witnessed. And in that witnessing, something profound took shape. For to witness a thing is to give it a kind of reality it would not otherwise have. A crossing unobserved is simply movement, but a crossing felt becomes transformation. That is where she lived, not in the act itself, but in the awareness of it. Daughter of Asteria and Persis, yes, but more than that, she was the quiet continuation of what they represented, distance that cannot be closed, endings that cannot be undone. And between them, the narrow, fragile space where everything changes. It is not a place one can remain for long, and yet she never leaves it. Night does not fall, it gathers. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it draws itself across the world, not as a curtain pulled, but as something that has always been there, waiting for the light to recede. In that gathering, the sky does not become empty. It deepens. The first stars do not appear all at once. They emerge quietly, as if remembering themselves. Small points of light suspended in an expanse that does not ask to be understood. This was the inheritance of Asteria. Not the brilliance of the heavens, not the clarity of day, but the distant, unreachable glow of things that exist far beyond touch. It is a strange inheritance. To carry within oneself a sky that cannot be approached, to hold light that offers no warmth. Hecate did not shine like the stars. She carried their distance. There is a difference. The stars are seen, but never held. They promise direction, yet remain beyond reach. They illuminate, but only faintly, just enough to remind the world of how vast the darkness truly is. From this, she inherited a quiet kind of vision, not the sight that reveals, but the sight that perceives without claiming, the ability to look into darkness and not seek to fill it, to allow it to remain as it is, deep, endless, and unresolved. It is not a comforting gift. To see without the need to resolve what is seen is to accept that some things will remain unknown. And yet, she did not turn away from it. Where others might seek the certainty of light, she lingered in what the light could not reach. The night, in her presence, was not absence. It was presence of another kind. But Asteria's inheritance was only one part. There was also Persis. If the stars mark distance, then endings mark time. They define not where something is, but when it ceases to be. Persis did not pass on destruction as an act of violence, but as a quiet inevitability. The understanding that all things, no matter how luminous, must one day dim. A flame does not resist its fading. A voice does not linger forever in the air. Even the stars themselves, distant and enduring, are not eternal. They burn. And in burning, they move toward their end. Hecate carried this knowing, not as sorrow, but as awareness. Every light she perceived carried within it the certainty of its own disappearance. Every beginning was already leaning toward its conclusion. This did not darken her vision, it deepened it. For where others might see only what is present, she saw what was passing, and in that passing, she found something that did not belong to loss. Transition, the moment when something is no longer what it was, but has not yet become something else. It is a fragile moment, easy to overlook, difficult to remain within, but it is there, always, between the flicker of a star and its fading, between the last breath of light and the fullness of night. This was her true inheritance, not the stars themselves, not the endings themselves, but the space that connects them. The place where light withdraws and darkness does not yet fully claim what remains. In this space, time feels different, slower, heavier, as though the world itself hesitates. And it is in that hesitation that she is most present. She does not hasten the fading of the stars. She does not preserve their light. She stands within the moment of their dimming, and allows it to unfold. There is no resistance in her, no attempt to hold what cannot be held, no desire to restore what has already begun to pass, only a quiet, unwavering presence. It is this presence that makes her difficult to understand, for she does not intervene, she does not change the course of things, and yet, to pass through a moment where she lingers is to feel that something has been acknowledged, that the transition, so often unnoticed, has been seen, and in being seen it becomes something more than simple change. It becomes a crossing. The night, under her gaze, is no longer empty. It is filled with thresholds, each star a distant reminder of something that burns, each shadow a suggestion of something that is no longer there, each silence a space where something has just ended or is about to begin. She moves through this landscape without disturbing it, not guiding, not leading, only accompanying what cannot remain as it is. Daughter of night and ending, bearer of distance and fading light, but more than either of these, she is what remains when light withdraws, and before darkness settles completely. A presence not of the stars, but of the space they leave behind. There was a time before thunder had a ruler, before the sky spoke in commands, before lightning carried intention, before power gathered itself into a single, watching throne. The world, though shaped by the Titans, had not yet learned control. It existed in vast, quiet continuities, immense presences holding their places without question, without rivalry. The sky stretched because it must. The earth endured because it could. The deep remained because nothing had yet challenged its depth. There was no centre, no singular authority to which all things turned. And within this world, broad, ancient and unhurried, she remained as she had always been. Not above, not below, but moving along the unseen lines that connected everything without binding it together. Hecate did not belong to the order the Titans were beginning to establish. They shaped the world by holding it still. She existed where it refused to remain still. Before Olympus rose, before the younger gods would claim dominion over sky and sea and fate itself, there was no need for her to be named. She was already everywhere she needed to be, at the edge of forests that had not yet been walked, at the meeting point of land and dark waters that no one had yet crossed, at the silent spaces where one presence ended and another began. She did not demand recognition, and so she was not given it. The Titans, in their vastness, did not ignore her, but neither did they define her. Perhaps because she did not stand against them, she did not challenge their dominion, nor seek to expand her own. She remained in the places they did not claim. And there are always such places. Even in a world held by immense beings, there are boundaries they do not cross, not because they cannot, but because those boundaries are not meant to be held. They are meant to be passed through. This is where she lived. And in those early ages, before conflict took shape, before ambition began to stir within the fabric of the cosmos, her presence was almost unnoticed. Not because it was small, but because nothing yet required what she represented. A world without struggle does not question its direction. A world without division does not fear its crossings. But even then, something was changing. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the stillness of the Titans began to feel incomplete. Not unstable, but insufficient. The world had shape, but it did not yet have movement. It endured, but it did not yet choose. And somewhere within that quiet endurance, a tension began to gather. Not conflict, yet, but the possibility of it. It could be felt in the spaces between the Titans, in the way the sky did not simply rest upon the earth, but held itself apart. In the way the deep did not simply exist, but seemed to wait. Waiting is not action, but it is never without meaning, and she was already there, within that waiting. She did not create the tension, she did not encourage it, but she felt it, the subtle shift from stillness to anticipation, from being to becoming. This is where her presence began to change, not in form, but in significance. For as soon as the world begins to lean towards something it is not yet, the spaces between what is and what will be become more than quiet boundaries. They become thresholds, and thresholds, once they begin to matter, cannot be ignored. She did not step forward, she did not claim a place among the Titans, but the world, in its slow turning, began to move closer to her. The edges grew sharper, the distances more defined, the transitions more pronounced, and with each of these, her presence became less like a background and more like something essential, still unseen, still unnamed, but no longer without weight. There is a moment before every great change when nothing has yet happened, and yet everything has already begun. A stillness that feels heavier than before, a quiet that carries within it the shape of what is coming. The world was approaching such a moment. The Titans did not yet fall. The Olympians had not yet risen, but the space between them had already begun to open, and she stood within that space, as she always had, not choosing sides, not shaping outcomes, only present, where the world was about to cross from what it had always been into something it could not yet understand. Before Olympus, she did not reign, she did not guide, she did not intervene, but when the first true shift would come, when the world would no longer remain as it was, it would not begin in the heights of power, it would begin in the space between them, and she would already be there. War does not begin with sound, it begins in a shift so subtle it can be mistaken for nothing at all. A pause where there was once certainty, a tension where there was once only endurance, a quiet fracture forming beneath what had always seemed unbreakable. The Titans did not fall suddenly, they began to loosen. The world they had held in place, vast, stable and unchallenged, was no longer enough. Something within existence had begun to move beyond their stillness. The shape of the cosmos was no longer content to endure, it wanted to change. And change, once it gathers weight, does not remain gentle. The younger gods, not yet crowned but already restless, rose not simply in defiance, but as a continuation of something the Titans could not contain. Movement, choice, direction. Where the Titans held, the Olympians reached, and between holding and reaching there was a rupture. The Titanomachy was not merely a war of power, It was a war of states, of what the world had been and what it was becoming. The sky trembled not from anger, but from strain. The earth did not break in chaos, but in transition. Even the depths seemed to shift, as though something long buried had begun to stir. It was not destruction alone, it was redefinition. And in this redefinition, every boundary sharpened, every division deepened, every threshold became impossible to ignore. This was where she stood, not above the conflict, not outside it, but within the very space that made it possible. For war, at its core, is a crossing, a movement from one state to another, from stability to upheaval, from silence to action, from what was to what will no longer resemble it. Hecate did not take up arms. She did not raise herself as a force against the Titans, nor did she anchor herself beside them. And yet she chose, not in the way the others did, not through allegiance declared or power asserted. Her choice was quieter, and perhaps, because of that, more profound. She aligned herself with what was becoming, not because it was stronger, not because it would prevail, but because it was moving. The Titans represented what endures, the Olympians represented what emerges, and she, who had always existed within the space between, could not remain bound to what refused to change. This was not betrayal, it was inevitability. To remain with the Titans would have been to deny her own nature, to fix herself within permanence when she belonged to transition. And so she stepped, not forward, not away, but into the current that was already forming. It is said in later tellings that she sided with Zeus. But this is too simple. She did not choose a ruler, she chose a direction, toward the unfolding of something new, toward a world that would no longer remain still. And in doing so, she did not gain power in the way the others sought it. She gained something else. Recognition, not spoken, not celebrated, but understood. For Zeus, unlike the Titans, did not seek only to hold the world. He sought to shape it, to divide it, define it, command it. And in that act of shaping, he encountered something the Titans had never needed to consider. Boundaries, limits, thresholds that could not simply be ruled, but had to be crossed. It was here that her presence revealed itself fully, not as a force to command, but as something even power must acknowledge. For even the will of a king must pass from thought into action. Even lightning must travel from sky to earth. Even authority must move from intention into reality. And every movement, no matter how absolute, passes through a moment where it is neither what it was nor what it will become. That moment belonged to her. The war raged, the Titans fell, the Olympians rose. But she remained as she had always been, unchanged by victory, untouched by defeat. She did not rise with Olympus. She did not fall with the Titans. She stood where both had passed. And in that standing, she became something neither side could claim, yet neither could exist without. There is a quiet irony in her choice. By aligning with what was becoming, she ensured her place in the new order. And yet, she did not belong to that order. For the Olympians, like the Titans before them, would seek to define, to control, to hold. And she would remain where holding fails, where certainty fractures, where every power, no matter how absolute, must eventually pass into something else. The war ended, but the crossings it created did not, and she remained within them, as she always had, not as victor, not as subject, but as the silent witness to the moment when the world chose, and became something it could never return from. Power, when it first settles, is rarely at ease. After the war, the world did not return to silence, it held its breath. The fall of the Titans had not erased what they were, it had only displaced them. Their weight lingered in the foundations of the world, in the sky that still stretched above, in the earth that still carried memory of what had once held it steady. And above all this, something new had risen. Not just strength, but authority. Zeus did not simply occupy the sky. He defined it. Where the Titans had endured, he ruled. Where they had remained, he directed. The world, once vast and unclaimed, now bent itself toward a centre. A will that shaped its movement, a voice that could command its order. But even in this new order, there were places that did not bend. There always are. For no matter how absolute power believes itself to be, it cannot occupy every space. There are edges, there are thresholds, there are moments where authority must pause, because it cannot simply pass through without changing form. It was in these spaces that she remained, unmoved by the war, unchanged by its outcome, and yet no longer unseen. Zeus, in his ascent, encountered something the Titans had never needed to face. Limitation. Not of strength, but of reach. For even the king of the sky cannot be everywhere at once. Even lightning, in all its speed, must travel from one place to another. And in that travel, there is a moment where it is neither fully in the sky nor fully upon the earth. A brief, flickering threshold. It was there that he felt her. Not as a rival, not as a force to overcome, but as something that existed beyond the structure he was building. This recognition did not come with fear. It came with something quieter. Understanding. For Zeus, unlike the Titans, did not merely exist within the world. He sought to order it, and in ordering it, he came to see that there were elements of existence that could not be commanded, only acknowledged. She was one of them. To ignore her would have been to ignore the very spaces through which his own power must pass. To deny her would have been to deny the moments where even his will required transition. And so, he did something the Titans had never done. He honoured her, not with subjugation, not with demand, but with recognition of what she was. He granted her dominion, not in the way kings grant land or sky or sea, but in a way that reflected her nature. Authority across boundaries. Influence over earth, sea and sky, not as territories to rule, but as realms she could move between freely, untouched by their divisions. It was a rare acknowledgement to be given place in all things, while belonging fully to none. Other gods received domains, clear, defined, contained. She did not. She received something less visible and yet far more difficult to contain. The spaces between domains. The unseen crossings that connect everything the gods would come to rule. It was not a gift of power in the traditional sense. It was an acceptance of inevitability. Zeus did not elevate her. He recognized that she could not be diminished, and in doing so, he placed her within the new order without binding her to it. There is a quiet tension in such an honour, for to be acknowledged by power is to be brought closer to it. And yet, she did not move closer. She remained as she had always been. At the edges, at the thresholds, in the spaces where even divine authority must pass without fully understanding what lies there. The Olympians rose around her, each taking their place, defining their roles, shaping the world into something structured, something governed. They became visible, named, worshipped. She did not change. She did not seek temples. She did not gather followers in the way others did, and yet her presence grew, not through devotion, but through necessity. For as the world became more ordered, its boundaries became sharper, and the sharper the boundary, the more significant the crossing. Every doorway, every path that divides, every moment where something ends and something else begins, all of these belonged, in some quiet and unspoken way, to her. Zeus had given her honour. But what he had truly given her was acknowledgement of what had always been true, that even kings, even gods, even the forces that shape the heavens themselves must pass through spaces they do not control. And in those spaces she waits, not to guide, not to judge, but to witness, and perhaps in that witnessing to remind even the highest power that no rule is absolute, for every command must cross from thought into action. And in that crossing there is always a moment where power is no longer what it was, and not yet what it intends to be. That moment belongs to her. And it always will. There are powers that divide the world, and there are those that move through what has been divided. After the rise of the Olympians, the cosmos took on a new clarity. The sky was no longer simply vast, it belonged to Zeus. The sea did not stretch without voice, it answered to Poseidon. The earth, with all its weight and quiet endurance, fell under its own order, watched and governed. Everything had a place, everything had a name. The world, once fluid and uncertain, had been drawn into boundaries that could be spoken, mapped, understood. But in the act of dividing the world, something else had quietly multiplied. Edges. Every realm, no matter how vast, now ended somewhere. The sky met the horizon, the sea touched the shore, the earth opened into depths that led elsewhere, and at each of these meetings, something passed between. It is easy to believe that power lies in holding a domain, to command the sky, to rule the sea, to govern the earth. These are visible forms of authority. They define the world by giving it structure. But what moves between those structures is less easily seen. And yet, it is constant. A wave does not remain in the sea. It rises, crosses into air, collapses upon the shore. Rain falls from the sky, touches the earth, disappears into it. A root grows downward, but draws from what lies above. Nothing remains entirely within its boundary. Everything, in some way, crosses. And it was in these crossings that her presence found its fullest expression. She was called Keeper of Earth, Sea and Sky, but she did not keep them as rulers do. She did not hold them. She moved through them. Freely. Without obstruction. Without allegiance to any single realm. This was the nature of the honour she had been given. Not ownership, but passage. To walk where others could not remain. To exist in the movement between worlds without being claimed by any of them. There is a quiet power in this, to belong everywhere and nowhere. The gods of Olympus ruled their domains with certainty. Their authority was clear, defined, unquestioned within its bounds. But step beyond those bounds into the place where one realm gives way to another, and that certainty begins to soften. A shoreline is not fully sea, nor is it fully land, it is something else. A threshold, and thresholds cannot be ruled in the same way as solid ground. They shift, they blur, they resist permanence. This is where she was strongest, not in the heart of a kingdom, but at its edges, not in what is defined, but in what is becoming. To the mortals who would one day come to know her, this presence would feel both comforting and unsettling, for she was not distant. She was near, always near, but never fully within reach, at the doorway between inside and outside, at the moment between waking and sleep, at the edge of a path where it divides into two. These are not grand places. They are small, often unnoticed, but they are where decisions are made, where movement begins, where something changes, and in those moments she is there. Not to guide, not to interfere, but to witness. There is a difference between a path that is chosen without awareness, and one that is chosen with the quiet sense that something has marked the moment. She does not alter the outcome, but she deepens the crossing, and in doing so, she gives weight to what might otherwise pass unnoticed. The Olympians did not challenge this, perhaps because they could not. For even they, in their certainty, depended on what lay between their realms. Messages must travel, winds must move, souls must pass from one state to another. None of these remain within a single domain. All of them cross, and in every crossing she is present. It is a role that does not seek recognition. It does not gather worship in the way thrones do, but it endures, quietly, constantly. For as long as the world remains divided, there will be spaces between its divisions, and as long as there are spaces between, there will be something that belongs to them. She is not the sky. She is not the sea. She is not the earth. But without her, none of them would touch. And perhaps that is why her presence feels so difficult to name. Because she is not what the world is. She is how the world moves from one thing into another. Keeper, not of realms, but of their meeting, and in that meeting she remains, unseen by many, unavoidable by all. There are places the world does not linger, places it passes through, without pause, without reverence, without even the awareness that something has been crossed. A doorway is not meant to be stayed in. A road is not meant to end where it divides. A shoreline is not meant to hold the sea, nor the land. These are not destinations, they are passages. And yet, for all their transience, they carry a weight that cannot be found in what surrounds them. For it is not in what is stable that the world reveals itself most clearly. It is in what is changing. She came to be known as the goddess of these places, though even this name does not fully hold her. For a liminal space is not a thing, it is a moment, a condition, a brief suspension where what was loosens its hold, and what will be has not yet taken form. To exist within such a moment is to feel something subtle, yet unmistakable. A hesitation, a quiet shift in the air, as though the world itself is aware that something is about to change, but has not yet decided how. This is where she resides, not in temples, not in the high places of power, but in the in-between, where the familiar becomes uncertain, where the known begins to dissolve, and where for a fleeting instant everything feels both possible and fragile. To mortals, these spaces would come to carry a strange unease, a crossroads at dusk, a doorway in the stillness of night, a path through a forest where the trees seem to close in just enough to alter the silence. There is nothing overtly threatening in these places, and yet something feels different. Not danger, but awareness, as though one is no longer entirely within the world they thought they understood. This is her presence, not seen, not heard, but felt. A subtle recognition that one is standing at a threshold, and that to cross it is to leave something behind. She does not create these moments, she reveals them. For without her, a crossing is simply movement, unnoticed, unfelt, but with her it becomes something else. A passage, a shift that carries weight, a moment that lingers even after it has passed. There is a quiet irony in this, for the world moves constantly from one state to another, day into night, life into death, silence into sound, and yet most of these transitions go unnoticed. They slip past without acknowledgement, without meaning. She does not slow them, she does not stop them, but where she lingers, they are felt, and in being felt, they become something more than simple change. They become experience. There is no comfort in this. To be aware of transition is to be aware of what is being lost. To stand at a threshold is to understand, even if only faintly, that what lies ahead cannot fully preserve what lies behind. And yet, there is also something else. A possibility. For if something is ending, then something else is beginning, even if it is not yet visible, even if it has no shape, even if it remains just beyond understanding. This is the tension she carries, not despair, not hope, but the fragile space between them. She is not the darkness, she is not the light, She is the moment when one gives way to the other, and in that moment she does not guide, she does not decide, she does not intervene, she watches. It is a quiet kind of power, one that does not assert itself, one that does not demand recognition, and yet it is everywhere, for every step forward is also a step away. Every beginning carries the shadow of an ending. Every choice divides the path into what will be and what will never be. These are not grand events, they are small, constant, unavoidable, and she is present in all of them, not as a force that shapes destiny, but as the space in which destiny turns. To call her the goddess of liminal spaces is to try to name what cannot easily be held. For she is not the space itself, she is what makes the space matter. The awareness, the weight, the quiet shift that tells you something has changed, even if you cannot yet say how. And perhaps that is why her presence is so often overlooked, because to notice her is to notice the moment when the world is no longer what it was, and not yet what it will become. A moment most would rather pass through quickly, without looking, without feeling, without knowing. But she remains there, always, waiting, not to stop you, not to lead you, but to witness the exact point where you cross. There was a time before paths, before the world learned to divide itself into directions, before movement carried intention, before a step forward meant leaving something else behind. The earth stretched wide and continuous. There were no roads carved into it, no lines to guide the wanderer, no intersections where one must choose between one way and another. Movement existed, but it was without decision. One simply went, until slowly something changed. It did not begin with intention, it began with repetition. A step taken once leaves no mark. A step taken again begins to shape the ground. A step taken many times becomes a trace, a faint memory pressed into the earth. And from that memory, a path emerges, not created by decree, but by the quiet insistence of movement. The first paths were not straight. They wandered, they curved, they followed instinct rather than design. They led not toward destinations, but toward habits, places where something had once been found, or where something might be found again. But where there is one path, there can be another, and where two paths meet, something new is formed. Not a place, not quite, but a question. The first crossroads was not marked by stone or sign. It did not announce itself, it simply appeared, as all thresholds do, quietly, without warning. Two lines in the earth, touching, and in that touching, a division. To continue forward, to turn aside, to return. For the first time, movement required choice, and with choice came something the world had not yet fully known. Uncertainty. It is a subtle thing, to stand where more than one direction is possible, and to realise that each direction carries its own future, that to choose one is to abandon another. The crossroads does not tell you which way is right, it does not guide, it does not comfort, it simply presents, and waits. This is where she became most visible, not in form, but in presence. For the crossroads is not merely a meeting of paths, it is a meeting of possibilities, a place where what could be gathers, briefly, before being divided by decision. She did not create the crossroads, but she gave it weight. Without her, it is only an intersection. With her, it becomes something else. A moment suspended, a place where the air feels different, still, attentive, as though the world itself is listening for what will come next. To stand at a crossroads is to feel watched, not by eyes, but by something that recognizes the importance of what is about to happen. She does not speak. She does not reveal the consequences of the paths before you. She allows the silence to deepen, and in that silence, the weight of the choice becomes clear. This is why the crossroads would come to belong to her. Not because she ruled it, but because she understood it. Every path is a crossing, but the crossroads is where crossings multiply, where the simplicity of movement becomes the complexity of decision, where the world no longer carries you forward, but waits for you to choose your direction. There is a quiet power in this waiting, for it reveals something that cannot be seen elsewhere, that the future is not singular, it branches, it divides, and each division carries with it the shadow of what might have been. She stands at that division, not to guide, not to intervene, but to witness the moment when possibility collapses into reality. There is no judgment in her presence, no approval, no disapproval, only awareness. And yet that awareness changes something. To choose without being seen is one thing. To choose while knowing that the moment matters is another. The crossroads, under her watch, becomes more than a place. It becomes an experience, a pause in which the world gathers itself, a silence in which the self becomes visible to itself, a moment where one understands, even if only faintly, that the path ahead will shape what follows, and that there is no returning to the moment before the choice was made. The first crossroads did not remain alone. As paths spread, as movement became more deliberate, they appeared again and again across fields, through forests, at the edges of settlements not yet built, each one carrying the same quiet tension, each one holding the same question, and at each one she remained. Unseen, unmoving, present, the goddess not of the path, but of where paths divide. For it is not the journey that defines us, it is the moment we choose which journey to take, and that moment, brief, silent, irreversible, belongs to her. Darkness does not arrive all at once, it gathers slowly, like a breath drawn too deeply. The edges of the world soften first, shapes lose their certainty. What was once clear becomes indistinct, as though the world itself is retreating from view. And then there is only shadow. It is in this shadow that the human mind begins to wander. For what cannot be seen begins to imagine itself. A path that seemed familiar by day becomes uncertain at night. A forest, once open and quiet, feels dense and watchful. Even silence changes, it deepens, thickens, as if it holds something just beyond hearing. Darkness does not create fear, it reveals how little is known. And in that revelation, something is needed. Not light, as the sun provides, but something smaller, something carried. A flame. The first torches were not symbols, they were necessity. A fragile fire, held in trembling hands, pushing back only a small portion of the night. Enough to see the ground beneath one's feet. Enough to mark a direction, however uncertain, but never enough to banish the darkness entirely. The torch does not conquer the night, it moves within it, and so did she. Hecate came to be known not only as a presence in the darkness, but as one who carried light through it. Not the overwhelming light of day, but the quiet, flickering glow of torches. There is something different about this kind of light. It does not erase shadows, it creates them. The flame dances, and with it the world shifts, forms stretching and collapsing, appearing and disappearing with each movement of the fire. It is an uncertain light. And yet it is enough to move forward, enough to continue. This is the kind of guidance she offers. Not clarity, but continuation. She does not illuminate the entire path. She does not reveal what lies far ahead. She offers only what is needed for the next step. and in that restraint there is something both comforting and unsettling. For to walk by torchlight is to accept that much will remain unseen, to move forward without certainty, to trust that the path exists even when it disappears beyond the reach of the flame. This is the space she inhabits, not the safety of full knowledge, but the fragile act of moving through the unknown. The torch becomes more than a tool, it becomes a symbol of passage, of crossing from one state into another without fully understanding what lies between. In the presence of her torches, the darkness does not retreat. It listens, it shifts, it allows the flame to pass, but never yields completely. And so, the one who carries the torch must accept this balance. Light enough to move, darkness enough to remain uncertain. This is where she is most present, not in the brightness of day, where everything is revealed, but in the dim spaces where something must be trusted without being fully seen. There are stories that speak of her holding twin torches, not as weapons, not as declarations of power, but as markers. Signals in the darkness that something is being sought or something is being guided. The flicker of those flames does not command, it invites. To follow, or simply to continue. Even when the way is unclear, even when the world feels altered, unfamiliar, uncertain, there is something deeply human in this image. To walk through darkness with only a small light. To move forward despite not knowing what waits ahead. To trust the next step even when the path beyond it is hidden. She does not remove the fear of the dark. She makes it possible to walk within it, and perhaps that is a quieter, more enduring kind of power. For the darkness is not something that can be erased, it exists as surely as the light, but within it there are moments, small, flickering, fragile, where movement becomes possible, where stillness gives way to direction, where hesitation softens into action. These are the moments her torches mark, not as guarantees, not as promises, but as invitations, to step forward, to cross, to continue, and in that continuation something changes, not the darkness, but the one who walks through it. For every step taken with only a torch for guidance is a step taken without certainty, and yet it is taken, that is enough. And she is there, not at the end of the path, not waiting in some distant place of arrival, but beside the flame, in the shifting light, in the quiet space between what is seen and what remains hidden, holding the torch, not to lead, but to remind that even in darkness, movement is still possible. There are things that do not remain, not in the way stone remains, not in the way mountains hold their shape against time. There are presences that pass. They move through the world without leaving a form behind, touching it only briefly, like a breath across still water, felt but not seen. These are the spirits, not always the dead, as they would later be understood, but something more uncertain, fragments of what has been, echoes of what no longer fully exists, whispers that linger in the spaces where something has ended but has not entirely gone. The early world did not separate cleanly between life and death. That division would come later, sharpened by belief, shaped by fear, defined by ritual. But in the beginning there was overlap. The living moved through the world, and the not living did not entirely leave it. They remained at the edges. In the quiet spaces, in the moments where presence thins and absence has not yet settled fully, this is where she stood, not among the living, not among the dead, but where the two begin to blur. To call her the mistress of spirits is not to say she commands them. She does not rule them as a sovereign rules subjects. She does not summon them with authority, nor bind them with force. She is something else to them. A point of passage, a place of recognition, For spirits, like all things that no longer belong fully to one state, exist in transition. They are no longer what they were, but they have not yet become what they will be. They linger, and in that lingering, they are drawn to the same spaces she inhabits. Thresholds, crossings, edges where one form of being dissolves into another. It is here that she encounters them, not as a ruler, but as something familiar. For what they experience, she embodies, the state of being between. There is no fear in her presence, not for them. Fear belongs to those who cling to certainty. Spirits no longer have such certainty. They have already crossed something that cannot be undone, and in that crossing they have become something quieter, something less defined, something closer to her. She does not guide them, she does not direct their path, but she witnesses them, and in that witnessing something shifts. To be seen in a state where one no longer belongs is to be acknowledged in a way the world often refuses. For the living do not easily recognize what has passed beyond them. They turn away, they forget, they move forward. But she does not. She remains at the place where what has been still lingers. And so the spirits gather there, not in crowds, not in chaos, but in quiet presence, passing through, pausing, drifting along the edges of a world that no longer fully holds them. There are moments, it is said, when the boundary between these states thins, when the distance between the living and the spirits narrows just enough to be felt, a stillness in the air, a sense that something unseen has drawn near, not to harm, not to speak, but simply to exist within the same space, however briefly. These are her moments, the moments where the world overlaps with itself, where what has ended brushes against what continues. She does not create these moments. She allows them. She holds the space where they can occur without collapsing into confusion, for without such spaces, the world would become rigid, unyielding, unable to transition from one state to another, and nothing that cannot transition can endure. This is her role, not to control the spirits, but to maintain the space in which they can pass. To stand at the edge where existence loosens its grip and something quieter takes its place. There is a certain stillness to this, a calm that is not comfort, but acceptance. For in her presence there is no denial of what has ended, no attempt to restore what has been lost, only the quiet acknowledgement that something has changed and continues to change. The spirits do not belong to her, but they move through her domain, as all things in transition must, and she remains. Not calling them, not holding them, but standing at the threshold where they pass from one state into another, a presence that does not claim, but does not turn away. Mistress, not by command, but by proximity, for she is always there, where what once was becomes something else, and where even absence still carries a trace of being. There are those who accept the world as it is, and there are those who sense that it is not as solid as it seems. They notice the subtle shifts, the way a place feels different at dusk than it does at noon, the way a word, spoken in the right moment, carries more weight than its sound alone, the way certain paths seem to invite while others resist. These are not illusions. They are fractures in certainty, small openings where the world reveals that it is not fixed, but layered, shifting, responsive in ways that are not easily seen. Those who learn to move within these openings would come to be called witches, not because they defy the world, but because they understand something most do not. That reality is not a single surface, it is made of crossings, and where there are crossings, there is her. Hecate did not create witchcraft. She did not teach it in the way knowledge is passed from one hand to another. She existed within the conditions that made it possible. For witchcraft, at its core, is not about control. It is about attunement. The ability to sense where the world thins, where boundaries loosen, where something may be altered, not by force, but by entering the moment in which change is already occurring. This is her domain, and those who seek such moments inevitably find themselves near her. Not in temples, not in the open light of day, but in the quiet places, at the edge of forests, at the meeting of roads, in the still hours when the world seems to pause between one state and another. It is there that the witch listens, not for voices, but for shifts. A change in the air, a silence that deepens rather than fades, a sense that something unseen has drawn closer. This is how her presence is known, not through revelation, but through awareness. She does not grant power. She does not choose those who follow her, but those who learn to stand within the spaces she inhabits begin to understand something of her nature. They begin to see that the world is not only what it appears to be, that beneath the surface of things there are movements that can be felt if one remains still enough to notice. And in noticing, something becomes possible. A word spoken at the right threshold carries further. An action taken in the right moment shifts more than it should. A boundary, approached with understanding, becomes permeable. This is not domination. It is participation, to move with the world rather than against it. To step into the moment where something is already changing and allow that change to take a different shape. But there is a cost to such awareness. To see the world in this way is to lose the comfort of certainty. To understand that what is solid may not remain so. That what is unseen may be closer than expected. That every action, no matter how small, carries consequences that extend beyond what can be immediately known. This is why those who walk this path are often set apart, not by her, but by the nature of what they come to understand. They do not stand fully within the world as others do. They stand, like her, at its edges, between what is accepted and what is possible, between what is known and what can be altered. This is why she came to be called their queen, not as a ruler who commands, but as a presence that defines the space they inhabit. She is not above them. She is within the same threshold they walk. The difference is only this: she has always been there. Where they arrive, she remains. Where they hesitate, she is already still. Where they seek to understand, she does not need to, for she is not learning the nature of these spaces. She is their nature. To call her Queen of Witches is to recognize that all who move within the unseen layers of the world move, in some way, within her. Not as followers, not as subjects, but as those who have stepped, however briefly, into the same condition, the state of being between. And in that state there is no clear path, no certainty, no fixed outcome, only awareness, and the quiet, persistent sense that something is always shifting just beyond what can be fully understood. She does not guide them, she does not protect them, but she is there, at every threshold they cross. In every moment they attempt to shape what is already changing, watching, silent, unmoving, not as a queen upon a throne, but as the presence that makes their path possible at all. There is a moment before a word is spoken, a brief suspension, almost imperceptible, where meaning has formed but has not yet entered the world. In that moment, the word belongs only to thought, unbound, unheard, unreal. And then it is spoken. It leaves the silence. It takes shape in sound. And once it has done so, it cannot return to what it was before. A name is not merely a label. It is a crossing, a movement from the unseen into the seen, from the unformed into the defined. To name something is to draw a boundary around it, to separate it from what it is not, to give it shape within the mind, and in doing so, within the world itself. This is where her presence lingers, not in the word, but in the moment it becomes real. Hecate is not the keeper of language, she does not govern speech, but she exists within the threshold where sound gains meaning, and meaning begins to take hold. It is here that names carry their weight, for before something is named, it exists without edge. It is present but undefined. Once named, it becomes something else, recognized, contained, and, in some quiet way, changed. This is why names have always been treated with caution. To know the true name of something is not simply to recognize it. It is to stand at the boundary where it becomes itself, and boundaries, as she embodies, are never without consequence. A name can call something closer. It can anchor what might otherwise drift. It can fix what was fluid. But it can also limit. For to define is also to confine. This is the tension she holds, not between silence and speech, but between what is unformed and what has been given shape. Spells emerge from this same threshold, not as acts of force, but as acts of alignment. A word spoken at the wrong moment is only sound. A word spoken at the right moment carries something more. It enters the world at a point where the boundary is already shifting, where something is already becoming something else. And in that moment, the word does not impose change. It joins it. This is the quiet truth beneath what would later be called magic. It is not the creation of something from nothing. It is the recognition of a moment when something is already in motion and the choice to step into it. To speak, to name, to shape, but never entirely to control. She does not grant these words their power. She does not decide when they will work or how, but she is always present where their effect takes hold. For every spell is a crossing, from intention into action, from thought into consequence, from possibility into reality. And that crossing belongs to her. There is a stillness required for this, a kind of listening, not to voices, but to moments, to sense when the world has opened, even slightly, to allow something new to enter. To speak not too soon, not too late, but at the exact point where the unseen begins to take form. This is not knowledge that can be easily taught. It is not fixed. It cannot be written in certainty. It must be felt. And those who learn to feel it come to understand something of her nature. That power does not lie in force, but in timing, in presence, in the quiet awareness of when something is ready to change. A name once spoken cannot be taken back. A spell once cast cannot be undone in the way it was before. These are not reversible acts, they are crossings. And every crossing leaves something behind. A silence that no longer holds the same shape. A moment that has been altered beyond return. A boundary that has been moved, however slightly. She stands at each of these, not to prevent them, not to guide them, but to witness the instant they occur. The precise point where what was becomes something else. This is why her presence is so often felt in words spoken in darkness, in whispers at thresholds, in names uttered where the world feels thinner than it should, because it is not the word itself that carries the weight, it is where and when it is spoken, and she is always there, at that point, where silence breaks, where meaning forms, where the unseen becomes real. And once it has become real, it does not return, it continues, changed, as all things are once they have crossed. There are things the mind cannot hold in a single image, not because they are hidden, but because they do not remain still. To look at them from one angle is to understand only a fragment. To turn away is to lose what was just seen. and to try to gather them into one form is to feel them slip beyond definition. She became one of these, not because she changed, but because the world, in trying to see her, could not do so without dividing what it saw. At the crossroads, something unusual happens. It is not merely that paths meet, it is that directions multiply. Forward, back, sideways into what cannot yet be known. To stand at such a place is to be pulled, not physically, but in awareness, toward more than one possibility at once, and the mind, unable to rest in that multiplicity, begins to separate, to imagine each direction as its own, to give form to what cannot be held together. It was here that she began to be seen as more than one, not because she split, but because she was always present in more than one direction at once. To face one path is to see one aspect. To turn toward another is to see something different, and yet both belong to the same presence. This is how the image of her triple form emerged, not as three separate beings, but as three ways of perceiving what cannot be confined to a single perspective. She is not divided, she is multiplied in perception. One face looks forward, toward what is coming, toward the unknown that waits beyond the next step. Another looks backward, toward what has been left behind, toward the weight of memory, of choices already made, of paths that can no longer be taken. And the third does not look along the path at all. It looks outward, toward the space between, toward the threshold itself, where neither past nor future fully holds. These are not roles, they are states of awareness. And to encounter her in this form is to feel them all at once. The pull of what was, the uncertainty of what will be, and the fragile, fleeting presence of what is. It is not a comfortable experience, for the mind seeks to move forward, to leave the past behind, to choose a direction and follow it. But her presence at the crossroads resists this simplicity. She does not allow the moment to collapse too quickly into decision. She holds it open, expands it, allows the weight of each direction to be felt before it is chosen. This is why she appears as free, because the moment itself has become more than one, more than a single line of movement. It has become a convergence, and she stands at its centre, not guiding, not deciding, but embodying the complexity of the choice itself. There is a deeper meaning within this form, for it reflects something not only of the crossroads, but of existence itself. The past does not disappear, it remains, shaping what follows. The future does not wait passively, it presses forward, pulling the present toward it, and the present, the narrow, almost invisible line between them, is where everything changes. She is all three, not as separate entities, but as a single presence stretched across time, the watcher of what has been, the witness of what is becoming, and the silent awareness that exists between them. This is why her form feels both complete and impossible, for to see her fully is to see time itself, not as a line, but as a convergence, a crossing of moments, a meeting of what cannot be held together, and yet is. Those who sought to represent her carved her in three directions, back to back. Each face turned outward, watching a different path. It is an image that attempts to fix what cannot be fixed, to give shape to what is, by nature, shifting. And yet, even in stillness, the image carries something of her truth, that she is never facing only one way, never confined to a single moment, never limited to a single understanding. She is always more than what is seen, and always present in more than one place at once. To stand before her in this form is not to be guided, it is to be reminded that every choice exists within a web of what has been and what will be, that no path is taken without leaving another behind, and that the moment of decision, the narrow, silent space where all directions are still possible, is the most fragile and the most powerful place of all. She does not divide herself, she reveals the division that was always there, and in that revelation she remains. Free and one, unchanging, at every crossing, watching in all directions at once. Names change what they touch, not in their essence, but in how they are held. To name something is to draw it closer, to give it a place within thought, to shape it into something that can be returned to again and again. But in doing so, something is always simplified, reduced, contained. When she came to be called Triformis, it was not a discovery, it was an attempt. An effort to hold within a single word what had already resisted form. Free-formed, free-bodied, free-faced. The word suggests division, but what it reaches toward is unity that cannot be easily understood. For the triple form, as it came to be seen, was not merely an image, it was a recognition that her presence does not belong to one place, nor to one moment, nor even to one state of being. She stands at the crossroads, but the crossroads is not a single point. It extends, it unfolds, it exists wherever boundaries meet and multiply. To call her Triformis is to acknowledge that she is present in more than one threshold at once, that she does not move from place to place, as others do. She is already there, in the upper air, where light begins to fade into something softer. On the earth, where paths divide and decisions take form. Below, in the unseen depths, where what has ended begins its quiet passage elsewhere. These are not separate realms to her. They are layers of the same crossing, and she exists within all of them simultaneously. This is what the name attempts to hold. Not free bodies, but free states of presence, above, within, below, each one complete, each one connected, each one reflecting a different aspect of the same threshold. There is a stillness to this form, a sense that she does not move between these states, but rather they move through her. As day becomes night, as life becomes memory, as certainty becomes something less defined, she remains, present in each stage, not altering it, not guiding it, but holding the space in which it becomes something else. Those who invoked her as Triformis were not merely naming her. They were calling upon this multiplicity, this ability to stand in more than one place at once, to see beyond a single moment, to exist across boundaries that others experience only one at a time. There is a quiet power in this, for most beings move through time as a line, from past into present into future. But her presence suggests something different, that these are not separate, that they exist together, layered, intersecting, and that to stand at the threshold is to feel them all at once. This is why her image becomes more complex, not less as it is named. Why each attempt to define her only reveals more of what cannot be contained. The three forms are not separate identities, they are perspectives, ways of seeing what is always there. The watcher above, where distance allows a wider view, the presence within, where the moment is felt most intensely. The shadow below, where what has passed continues in a quieter form. All of them belong to her, none of them alone define her. To stand before her as Triformis is to feel this layering, to sense that what is happening now is not isolated, that it carries within it what has already been, and what is yet to come. That the moment is not singular, it is a crossing of many things at once. This is not easy to hold. It resists clarity, it dissolves the comfort of a single direction, and yet it reveals something deeper, that the world is not a straight path, it is a convergence, of times, of states, of possibilities, and she stands at that convergence, not divided, not multiplied, but present in all its dimensions. The name Triformis does not capture her, it gestures toward her, an attempt to speak what cannot fully be spoken, to shape what cannot be held in a single form, and in that attempt something remains. A trace, a suggestion that she is always more than what is seen, more than what is named, more than what can be understood from any one direction. Free as a reflection, one as a presence, and beyond both, something that does not require form at all. She does not become free. She reveals that the world itself has never been only one. Before something is seen, it is often heard, a sound in the distance. Faint, uncertain, difficult to place. In the stillness of night, when the world has withdrawn into shadow, even the smallest noise carries further than it should. A rustle becomes a presence, a breath becomes movement, and sometimes there is a cry, low at first, then rising. A call that does not belong to speech, yet feels as though it means something. This is how they are known, not by sight, but by sound. The dogs that follow her are rarely described as companions in the way others keep them. They do not walk at her side as loyal servants, nor do they rest in quiet obedience. They move differently. At the edges, ahead and behind, sometimes near, sometimes distant, always present, but never fully contained. Their howls are not warnings in the way one might expect. They do not announce danger. They announce proximity, not to her form, but to her presence. For sound travels differently across thresholds. It stretches, it distorts. It arrives before the moment itself has fully formed. A dog's cry in the distance can reach you before you know why it matters, before you understand what it signals. And then, when the moment arrives, it is already there, waiting, as though it had been expected all along. This is why they are bound to her, not as guardians, but as echoes of what is approaching, of what has crossed into nearness, but has not yet fully revealed itself. In many places, it is said that dogs see what others cannot, that they sense presences before they are visible, that they react not to what is present in form, but to what exists just beyond it. Whether this is truth or belief does not matter. What matters is the idea that there are things moving through the world that arrive before they are seen, and that something, somewhere, is aware of them. The dogs carry this awareness. They do not explain it. They do not interpret it. They respond to it. And in that response, something becomes known. A threshold is near. A crossing is unfolding. Something unseen is passing into something that can be felt. Their howls mark these moments, not precisely, not clearly, but unmistakably. To hear them is to feel that something has shifted, even if nothing visible has changed, even if the world remains exactly as it was a moment before. There is a subtle difference, a tension in the air, a sense that one stands closer to something without knowing what it is. This is where she is, not in the sound, but in what the sound reveals. The dogs do not belong to her as possessions. They move within her domain because their nature aligns with it. They exist at the edge of awareness, between instinct and perception, between what is sensed and what is understood. And in that space, they become companions not of her body, but of her condition. There is something deeply ancient in this connection, a recognition that before thought there is feeling, before understanding there is awareness, and that awareness often arrives in forms that cannot be easily explained. A sound in the dark, a movement just beyond sight, a presence that cannot be named yet cannot be ignored. The dogs carry these things, not as messages, but as manifestations. They do not speak, but they make something known, and she remains where that knowing takes form, not calling them, not commanding them, but present in the same moment that draws their cry into the world. Their howls do not guide, they do not tell you where to go, but they mark the moment where the world has already begun to change, where something has crossed into nearness, where something unseen is no longer entirely distant. And in that moment, whether one understands it or not, one stands closer to a threshold, closer to her. The dogs fade as quietly as they appear, their sound dissolving into the night, leaving behind only the memory of something that was felt, but not fully understood. And she remains, not in their absence, but in what they revealed, that the world is never entirely silent, that something is always approaching, and that before it arrives, it is already known, not by sight, not by word, but by the quiet, distant echo of something that moves through the dark just beyond the edge of understanding. Night does not belong to anyone. It arrives without permission, settles without resistance, and covers the world in a quiet that feels both complete and unfinished. In the darkness, the boundaries of things soften, the edges of buildings blur, paths disappear into shadow, distances stretch in ways that cannot be measured, the world becomes less certain. And in that uncertainty, movement changes. During the day, one walks with purpose, the path is visible, the direction is clear. Each step follows the last with little hesitation, but at night, movement becomes something else, slower, more deliberate. Each step carries awareness, each sound is noticed. Each shift in the air is felt. To walk at night is not simply to move, it is to listen. This is where she wanders, not as a figure crossing the earth, but as a presence within this altered state. She does not travel from one place to another. She exists in the act of wandering itself. For wandering is not the same as walking. It has no fixed destination, no clear end. It is movement without certainty, a drifting between places rather than a journey toward one. And in that drifting, something changes. The world is no longer something to be passed through. It becomes something to be sensed. A path at night is not just a line to follow, it is a question. Does it continue as it seems? Does it turn where the darkness deepens? Does it lead somewhere, or nowhere at all? There are no answers given, only the next step, and the next, and the quiet awareness that the path exists only as long as one continues to walk it. This is her domain, not the destination, but the uncertainty of the journey itself. She is called the Night Wanderer, not because she moves through darkness, but because she is present in the way darkness changes movement. She does not guide, she does not reveal, but in her presence, wandering becomes something more than aimless motion. It becomes a crossing, from knowing into not knowing, from certainty into possibility. There is a solitude in this, not loneliness, but a separation from the world as it is usually understood. At night the familiar becomes unfamiliar. A place known by day feels altered, as though it holds something that was not visible before. A doorway seems deeper, a road seems longer, a shadow seems aware. This is not illusion, it is perception, shifted. The world has not changed, but the way it is experienced has. And she exists within that shift. Those who wander at night often feel her without knowing her, a subtle sense that they are not entirely alone, not watched in the way one fears being seen, but accompanied by something that does not interfere, that does not approach, but does not leave. It is a quiet presence, unmoving, even as one walks, as though the act of wandering itself has drawn something closer. This is not guidance. There is no direction offered, no assurance that the path is safe, or that it leads anywhere at all. Only the continuation, the simple, fragile act of taking another step, and then another. There is something revealing in this, for when the path is unclear, the self becomes more visible. Each hesitation, each decision, each moment of uncertainty, all of it rises to the surface. There is no distraction, no certainty to rely upon, only the awareness of movement itself. And she is there, not observing as a judge, not intervening as a guide, but present in the space where the world has grown quiet enough for such awareness to emerge. To wander at night is to enter her domain, not because she calls, but because the conditions that reveal her are already there. Darkness, uncertainty, movement without clear direction. These are not things to be feared, but neither are they comfortable. They require something different. A willingness to continue, without knowing, and in that willingness something shifts. The path, though unseen, is still walked. The world, though uncertain, is still entered, and the self, though unsettled, begins to understand something it could not in the light, that not all movement requires clarity, that not all journeys require a destination, and that sometimes to wander is to stand within the very space where change becomes possible. She does not arrive at the end of the path. She is there in the wandering itself, in the quiet between steps, in the darkness between what is known and what is not, and as long as the night remains, and someone chooses to walk within it, she will be there, not ahead, not behind, but within the movement, unseen, uncertain, and always present. A threshold is not a place. It does not belong to the room behind it, nor to the space beyond it. It exists only in relation. A line that separates and connects. A point that holds two states at once, yet fully belongs to neither. To stand before a threshold is to feel something subtle, a hesitation, not always conscious, not always named, but present. The body pauses, even if only for a breath. The mind acknowledges, however faintly, that crossing this point is not the same as remaining where one is. Something will change, even if that change is small, even if it is barely noticed. She stands there, not as a figure guarding a door, nor as a presence that blocks or permits, but as something that makes the threshold matter. Without her, a threshold is simply a boundary. With her, it becomes a moment, a point where movement is no longer automatic, where awareness gathers, even if only for an instant. This is why she is called its guardian, not because she prevents crossing, but because she holds the significance of it. There are thresholds everywhere, not only in doorways or gates, but in every transition the world undergoes. The moment before speaking, the instant before stepping forward, the quiet pause before a decision is made. These are not physical places, but they carry the same weight, a sense that what follows will not be the same as what came before. To cross a threshold is to leave something behind, even if that something is only a version of oneself that existed a moment earlier. It is a subtle loss, and a subtle beginning, both occurring at once. This is where she remains, not urging forward, not pulling back, but present in the exact instant where the crossing becomes real. There is no force in her presence, no command, no resistance, and yet something changes. To pass a threshold without awareness is to move. To pass it while feeling its weight is to cross. She does not create the difference, she reveals it, and in revealing it, she transforms something ordinary into something meaningful. The threshold becomes more than a boundary. It becomes a point of recognition, a place where the self becomes aware of its own movement. This awareness is not always comfortable, for it carries with it the understanding that what is left behind cannot be reclaimed in the same way, that every crossing alters something, even if only slightly, even if the change cannot yet be understood. This is why thresholds have always held a certain tension, a quiet unease, a sense that they are more than they appear, because they are. They are places where the world is not fixed, where it opens, however briefly, to allow one state to become another, and she stands within that opening, not to control it, but to ensure that it is not empty, that the moment of crossing is witnessed, that it is not lost in the continuous flow of movement. There is a stillness to her here, different from the stillness of night, or the quiet of the crossroads. This stillness is precise, focused, held at a single point where everything converges, before and after, inside and outside, what was and what will be. All of it meeting in a space that lasts no longer than a breath, and yet that breath carries everything. To stand at a threshold is to stand within that breath, and she is there, not as a barrier, but as a presence that makes the moment complete. The guardian not of the space itself, but of its meaning, for without meaning a threshold is nothing more than a line, but with it becomes something else, a crossing, a transformation, a moment that divides what has been from what is about to become. She does not ask you to stop, she does not ask you to consider, she does not speak, but her presence lingers in the hesitation, in the brief awareness that something is about to change, and that once it does, it cannot be undone. This is her role, not to hold the door, not to decide who may pass, but to remain where the passing occurs, to stand in the space that belongs to neither side, and to witness, quietly, as everything moves through it. For every life is made not only of where one stands, but of the thresholds one has crossed, and each of those crossings, no matter how small, has, in some silent way, passed through her. There are places where the world feels thinner, not visibly, not in a way that can be measured or explained, but in a way that is felt. A quiet sense that something passes through here more easily than elsewhere. The crossroads is one of these places. Not because it is marked, not because it is sacred in the way temples are made sacred, but because it holds a moment that does not belong entirely to anyone. A place where paths meet but do not remain, where movement gathers then divides, where presence lingers but never settles. It is here that offerings began, not as grand gestures, not as declarations of devotion, but as something quieter, more uncertain, a small act placed at the point where choice unfolds. Food left at the meeting of roads, fragments of what sustains life, set down in a place where life must decide its direction. Bread, milk, honey, simple things, not given to be consumed by a visible presence, but to be left and abandoned. This is important, for an offering at the crossroads is not like an offering in a temple. It is not placed into the hands of a god. It is released, left behind, without expectation of return. To give something in such a place is to accept that it will be taken or not taken without witness, that it will pass out of one's possession and into something unknown. This mirrors the nature of the crossroads itself, a place where what is carried may no longer remain, where something must be left behind in order for something else to begin. The offering becomes part of this crossing, not as payment, not as exchange, but as participation. A recognition that the moment of decision is not empty, that it holds weight, that it deserves to be acknowledged. Those who left offerings did not always understand why. They felt it, a sense that something should be given here, that the act of crossing should not pass unnoticed. And so they placed what they had and walked away, often without looking back, for to look back is to hold on to what has been left, and the crossroads does not allow for holding, only for passing. It is said that such offerings belonged to her, but not in the way one might think. She does not take them, she does not consume, she does not gather what is given. She remains where the offering is left, at the moment where it ceases to belong to the one who placed it, and begins to belong to no one, or perhaps to something that cannot be named. This is the true nature of the offering. It is not the object itself. but the act of release. To leave something behind without certainty of what will become of it. To accept that it has crossed out of one's control. This is the same movement as the choice made at the crossroads. To choose a path is to leave others behind. To step forward is to release what cannot be carried further. The offering reflects this. A small echo of a larger truth. That nothing can be taken entirely from one state into another. Something is always left at the threshold. She stands there. Not receiving. Not judging. But witnessing the moment where the offering becomes separate from the one who gave it. Where it enters the same space as all things that have crossed. Unclaimed. Unreturned. Transformed by the simple act of being left behind. There is a quiet humility in this. No assurance. No response. No sign that the offering has been accepted. Only the act itself. And the silence that follows. This is what binds the offering to her. Not devotion, but understanding. The recognition that there are moments in life where something must be given up, without knowing what comes next, without knowing if it matters, without knowing if it will be seen. And yet, it is done, because the crossing requires it, because the moment holds that weight, and because something within recognizes that to move forward. Something must be left behind. The crossroads does not remember the offerings. The world does not mark them. They disappear, taken by time, by animals, by the quiet erosion of things left unattended. But the act remains, not in memory, but in the crossing itself, and she remains. Where each offering was placed, where each decision was made, where each moment of release passed silently into what followed, not as a collector of gifts, but as the presence that makes the giving real. For to give without return is to step fully into the unknown. And that is where she has always been. Waiting, not for what is offered, but for the moment it is let go. There are moments when the world breaks, without warning, not loudly, not with the kind of violence that shatters everything at once, but with a single shift so sudden, so precise, that what was whole is no longer what it was. It begins in stillness, a field untouched by tension, the air unmoving, the earth quiet beneath open sky. Nothing in that moment suggests what is about to unfold. And yet something is already approaching, not seen, not heard, but present. A gathering beneath the surface, a movement below what appears unchanged. Persephone walks through this stillness without knowing it. She moves as one who has not yet encountered division, as one who exists entirely within the present, without the weight of what lies beneath or beyond it. The world for her is whole, continuous, unbroken, and it is precisely this wholeness that cannot remain. The ground opens, not gradually, not with hesitation, but with certainty. A rupture that does not ask permission, that does not warn, that does not allow time for understanding, and from it something rises, not as a shadow, but as presence. Hades does not emerge in chaos, he arrives as inevitability. A force that does not struggle, because it does not need to. What has begun cannot be undone. Persephone is taken, not through persuasion, not through choice, but through crossing. From one state into another, from the surface of the world into its depths. And in that crossing, something irreversible occurs. The world above does not immediately change. The sky remains, the earth remains. But something essential has been removed. A presence that once belonged now exists elsewhere. This is the nature of such moments. They do not announce their significance. They reveal it only after they have passed. She is there, not at the beginning, not as the cause, but at the moment of crossing, when the ground opens, when the separation becomes real, when what was once whole divides into what cannot be easily rejoined. Hecate does not intervene, she does not prevent, She does not alter what unfolds, but she feels it. The rupture, the sudden, undeniable shift from one state into another, the creation of a boundary where none had existed before. For this is what the abduction is, not only an act, but a division between above and below, between presence and absence, between what remains and what has been taken beyond reach. Persephone's cry is said to echo, to travel, to reach beyond the place where she is taken, and it is in this echo that something becomes known, not clearly, not fully, but enough. A sound that carries the shape of what has happened before it can be seen, before it can be understood. Hecate hears this, not with ears, but with awareness, the kind that exists at the edge of change, where something has already crossed and the world has not yet caught up to it. She moves then, not in pursuit, not in urgency, but in recognition, toward the place where the rupture has occurred, toward the space that has been opened, toward the threshold that did not exist until it was forced into being. She arrives too late to stop what has happened, but not too late to witness it, and in that witnessing something is preserved, not the act, not the force, but the moment, the exact point where the world divided itself into before and after. This is what she holds, not the abduction itself, but the crossing, the instant where Persephone ceased to belong entirely to the world above, and began to exist elsewhere. It is a moment that cannot be undone, only understood, slowly, over time, through consequence. The earth does not close as it was. The world does not return to what it had been. Something has changed. And that change will ripple outward, into grief, into search, into the reshaping of what it means to lose, and to find again. But all of that lies ahead. What remains here is the moment itself, the rupture, the crossing, the silent recognition that something has been taken beyond the reach of what once held it. She stands at that recognition, as she always does, not to explain, not to resolve, but to mark the exact point where the world is no longer what it was, and cannot return. For every loss begins in such a moment, quiet, sudden, irreversible, and it is there, in that first fragile instant of separation, that she is always present. There are moments that no one sees, not because they are hidden, but because they occur in a space where attention has not yet arrived. A cry that fades before it is understood, a change that settles before it is noticed, a loss that begins before anyone knows to name it. These moments do not vanish. They remain, quietly, in the fabric of what follows, and sometimes they are witnessed, not by those who would intervene, but by something that stands where such moments unfold. When Persephone was taken, the world did not immediately respond. There was no instant grief, no immediate search, only a silence that followed the rupture, a stillness in which the absence had not yet been fully felt. It is within this stillness that she stands. Hecate did not see the beginning. She did not watch the descent into the depths, but she heard. And hearing in such a moment is enough. For sound does not belong entirely to the place it begins. It travels, it crosses, it reaches beyond the boundaries that sight cannot pass. Persephone's cry moved through the world like a fracture, carrying with it the shape of what had occurred, not clearly, not in detail, but in essence, a loss, a sudden absence, a crossing that could not be reversed. Hecate receives this not as information, but as presence, a disturbance in the quiet, a shift in the balance of what is and what is no longer. And so she moves, not quickly, not with urgency, but with certainty, toward the place where the sound still lingers, toward the threshold that has been opened, toward the space where something has passed from one state into another. She arrives where the earth has closed, where the surface holds no visible sign of what has occurred, The field remains, the sky remains. Nothing at first glance reveals the fracture beneath, and yet it is there, felt, unseen. This is where she stands, not searching, not questioning, but witnessing. To witness is not to act. It is not to change what has happened. It is to hold the moment as it is, without distortion, without denial, without turning away. There is a weight in this, for to witness something that cannot be undone is to accept its permanence, to stand before what has changed and not seek to restore what was. This is her role, not to prevent the crossing, but to recognise it, to acknowledge that something has passed beyond return, and in that acknowledgement to give it a kind of reality that cannot be erased. For what is unwitnessed can be forgotten, it can dissolve into uncertainty. But what is witnessed remains, not always in memory, but in the structure of what follows. Hecate becomes, in this moment, the only one who knows. Not fully, not in detail, but enough to understand that something has been taken, that the world is no longer complete in the way it was before. This knowing is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention, but it exists. And it waits for the moment when others will begin to feel what has already occurred, when absence will become grief, when the search will begin. She does not initiate this. She does not carry the message forward as a herald. She remains at the place where the crossing happened, where the moment still lingers, even as the world moves beyond it. There is something profoundly still in this, to remain where others would move on, to hold a moment that has already passed, to stand within the echo of something that cannot be changed. This is not inaction. It is presence of a different kind, a refusal to let the moment disappear entirely. A quiet acknowledgement that what has happened matters, even if no one else yet knows it. The darkness around her is not empty, it holds the residue of the cry. The faint trace of movement, the lingering sense that something has passed through this place and left it altered. She does not follow, she does not descend. That is not her role. She remains at the threshold, where the world divided, where the crossing occurred, where the first awareness of loss took form. And in remaining she becomes something essential. Not a participant, not a rescuer, but a witness. The first to know, the first to stand within the reality of what has changed. Before grief, before search, before understanding, there is always this moment. Quiet, unseen, irreversible, and in that moment, before the world begins to respond, she is already there. Watching, holding, ensuring that what has been lost is not lost without recognition. Grief does not arrive as a single moment, it unfolds, slowly, unevenly, like something learning how to exist. At first there is only absence, a quiet space where something once was, not yet understood, not yet named. The world continues, as it always has, but something feels incomplete. Then comes the knowing, not sudden, not sharp, but settling. A realization that does not ask permission, that does not soften itself. Something is gone, and it will not return as it was. For Demeter, this knowing becomes everything. The earth, once fertile beneath her presence, begins to withdraw. Not in anger, not in defiance, but in reflection. What is taken from her is taken from the world. The fields grow still. The soil loses its willingness to give. Life, which once rose easily, begins to hesitate. This is grief made visible, not as emotion alone, but as a change in the world itself. Demeter does not remain still. She searches, not methodically, not with calm, but with a kind of relentless movement that does not rest, across fields, through forests, along paths that do not lead anywhere certain. She moves as one who cannot accept the boundary that has been drawn, as one who refuses to remain on one side of it, but there are boundaries that cannot be undone by searching. Thresholds that do not open simply because they are approached. And this is where Hecate meets her, not at the beginning of the loss, but in its unfolding, in the moment when absence has become undeniable, when the world itself has begun to reflect what has been taken. Hecate does not bring comfort, she does not offer reassurance, she does not promise return. What she brings is recognition. She speaks of what she has heard, not clearly, not completely, but enough, a cry, a moment, a crossing, something taken beneath the surface. This is not certainty, but it is direction, and in grief, even the smallest direction carries weight. Demeter does not stop. But her searching changes, it gains shape, not clarity, but orientation, towards something deeper, towards something that lies beyond the visible world. Hecate walks beside her, not leading, not following, but accompanying. There is a quiet difference in this presence. Demeter moves with urgency, with need, with the force of something that cannot accept what has happened. Hecate moves with awareness, with stillness that does not slow the movement, but deepens it. She understands what Demeter is approaching, a boundary that cannot be crossed in the same way as others, a threshold that does not respond to will, but must be acknowledged for what it is. The boundary between above and below, between the living world and the one beneath it. Demeter seeks to break it, to reclaim what has been taken. Hecate does not resist this, but she knows that such crossings are never simple, that what has passed into another state does not return unchanged. She does not say this, she does not need to, her presence carries it. The quiet understanding that even if Persephone is found, the world will not return to what it was. This is the nature of loss. It does not end when what is lost is restored. It alters what remains, and she stands within that alteration. As Demeter searches, as the earth withers in response, as the world itself begins to reflect the depth of what has been taken, Hecate remains beside her, not as a guide, but as a witness who has already seen the moment where everything changed. There is a subtle strength in this, not the strength to undo, but the strength to continue, to move forward, even when forward leads into uncertainty, even when it leads towards something that cannot be fully understood. Demeter does not walk alone, and yet she does, for grief is always solitary, even in the presence of another. Hecate does not attempt to enter that solitude, she does not soften it, she allows it to remain, but she does not leave. This is what makes her an ally, not comfort, not resolution, but presence, steady, unmoving, unwavering, at the edge of what cannot be changed. As the search deepens, as the path leads toward the unseen, toward the underworld itself, Hecate remains, not pulling back, not stepping ahead, but walking within the same threshold, where the world above meets what lies below, where hope and loss begin to blur, and where the question is no longer only what has been taken, but what it means to bring it back. She does not answer, she does not resolve, but she stands there, at the edge of what is about to be known, and in that standing she becomes something more than a witness, not a saviour, not a guide, but a presence that does not turn away, even when the path leads into darkness, even when what waits there cannot be undone. She remains, beside grief, beside searching, beside the moment where something lost begins to be found, and something else quietly changes forever. There are paths that do not belong to the living. They are not marked upon the earth. They do not gather footprints. They do not remember those who pass along them. And yet, they exist, hidden not by distance, but by condition. To walk such a path is not simply to move from one place to another. It is to become something else, if only for a moment. The descent into the underworld is not a journey in the way others are. It is a crossing, a passage from what is known into what cannot be fully understood. The light does not vanish all at once. It fades, softly, reluctantly, as though the world above does not entirely release what moves away from it. And then there is something different, not darkness as absence, but darkness as presence, a stillness that does not breathe, a silence that does not end. This is where she walks, not as one who belongs to the underworld, but as one who can move through it, freely, without resistance, without being claimed by it. Hecate is not of the dead, but she understands the path that leads toward them, for the underworld is not separate from the world above, it is connected. Through thresholds, through crossings that are rarely seen, but always present. To descend is to pass through these crossings, to move from one state into another, and she stands within that movement, not at the destination, but within the passage itself. It is said that she guides, but this guidance is not what one might expect. She does not lead with certainty. She does not illuminate the entire path. She offers something quieter. Presence. To move through the underworld alone is to lose orientation. There is no horizon, no clear direction, no sense of distance that can be trusted. Time itself becomes uncertain. Moments stretch, or collapse, without warning. To walk there is to feel the edges of oneself begin to blur, to question what remains, and what has already begun to fade. She does not prevent this, she does not anchor those who pass, but she accompanies. And in that accompaniment something holds, not the self as it was, but the awareness that it is still present, even as it changes. This is her form of guidance, not direction, but continuity. The quiet assurance that the crossing is being witnessed, that it is not empty, that it matters. The underworld is not a place of movement. It is a place of arrival, of stillness, of what has already crossed and now remains, but the path toward it, that is where she is, where something is not yet fully lost, but no longer belongs to the world above, where identity lingers even as it begins to shift, where memory holds even as it softens. This is the most fragile part of the journey, and it is here that her presence is strongest, not as protection, but as recognition. To be seen in this state is to remain, in some quiet way, intact, even as everything else begins to change. She does not speak. There are no words that belong to this place, only the sense of something moving beside you, unseen, unmoving in its own way, and yet always there, at each step, at each hesitation, at each moment where the path feels as though it may disappear entirely. She remains, not ahead, not behind, but within the crossing itself. There is no promise at the end of this path, no return guarantee, no restoration of what has been, only arrival, and the understanding that what arrives is not the same as what began. She does not change this, she does not soften it, but she makes it known, not through explanation, but through presence, that the journey has been witnessed, that the crossing has not gone unnoticed, that something has passed from one state into another, and that passage matters. To guide, in her way, is not to lead someone safely to a destination, it is to remain with them as they become something else, without resistance, without interruption, without turning away. The underworld does not belong to her, but the path toward it always does, for every descent is a crossing, and every crossing, no matter how silent, how unseen, how inevitable, passes through the space where she stands, waiting, not to direct, not to decide, but to be present, as the world gives way to something deeper, and something that once was becomes something else entirely. There are those who do not arrive, not fully, not in the way others do. They move, but without direction. They exist, but without place. They carry something of what they once were, but it no longer holds them as it did before. They are not entirely gone, but neither are they truly here. These are the lost, not lost in distance, but in state. Something within them has crossed, and something else has not followed. A separation, subtle yet complete. A dislocation that cannot be easily seen, but is always felt. They wander, not as travellers, but as those who no longer recognise the ground beneath them. Paths do not guide them. Boundaries do not contain them. They drift through spaces that do not hold their shape, through moments that do not fully become. It is here that she remains, not to gather them, not to lead them away, but to accompany. There is a difference between being alone and being without belonging. The lost souls exist in the latter. They are not simply solitary. They are unanchored, untethered from what once gave them place, from what once defined them. Time moves around them, but not always through them. They linger in moments that do not resolve, in spaces that do not close. And in that lingering, something fades. Not entirely, never entirely, but enough that what they were becomes difficult to hold. She does not restore this. She does not return them to what they were, but she does not leave them within that fading. She moves beside them, quietly, without interruption, without demand. Her presence does not call them back. It does not push them forward, but it remains, and in that remaining, something steadies. Not their direction, but their existence. To be lost is not only to lack a path, it is to feel unseen, unrecognised, as though one's presence no longer fully belongs within the world. She does not correct this, but she acknowledges it, and that acknowledgement is not small. For to be witnessed, even in a state of dislocation, is to retain something, a trace, a presence that has not entirely dissolved. She does not name them, she does not define them, she does not ask who they were or who they will become. She stands beside what they are, as they are. In the moment they cannot move beyond. There are those who pass quickly, who cross from one state into another without hesitation. Their path is clear, even if it is unseen. They do not linger, but others remain, caught in the threshold, held between. Not by force, but by something within that has not yet released what it was. These are the ones she accompanies most closely, not because they call her, but because they remain where she has always been, in the space between what has ended and what has not yet begun. She does not resolve their state, she does not complete their crossing, but she makes it possible for them to remain without vanishing entirely. This is a quiet kind of companionship, without conversation, without direction, without expectation. Only presence, steady, unwavering, unmoved by the uncertainty that surrounds them. There is no urgency in her, no need to move them along, for she understands something that others do not, that not all crossings happen at once, that some require time, even when time no longer behaves as it once did, that some states must be endured before they can be left behind, and in that endurance she remains, not as a solution, but as a witness, a presence that does not disappear, even when everything else begins to. The lost do not always recognise her, they do not always turn toward her, but something within them feels it, a quiet steadiness, a sense that they are not entirely without place, even here, even now, even in this state of in-between. She does not bring them home. She does not define where home is, but she walks beside them in the absence of it. And that is enough. For as long as something remains between what was and what will be, there will always be those who linger there, uncertain, unanchored, unseen, and she will be with them, not to change their path, but to ensure that even in being lost, they are not entirely alone. Death does not happen all at once. It is often spoken of as a moment, a final breath, a single crossing, a clear division between what was and what is no longer. But this is only how it appears, from a distance. Up close it is slower, less certain. Something loosens before it leaves, something lingers after it is gone. The boundary between living and dead is not a clean line, it is a threshold, and thresholds are never immediate. They hold, they stretch, they allow for a brief, fragile overlap where what has ended has not yet fully disappeared. This is where she stands, not in death itself, not in the final stillness where all movement ceases, but in the space where death becomes real, where the living presence fades and something quieter takes its place. She is not the ruler of the dead. She does not command them. She does not decide their path or their fate. But she remains where they pass, where the last connection to what was begins to loosen, and where something else begins to form. There is a silence in this moment, different from all others. It is not the silence of night, nor the quiet of absence. It is a silence that holds something within it, a presence that has not yet left, but no longer belongs. The body remains, the world remains, but something essential has shifted, something that cannot be returned. This is the moment she witnesses, not with sorrow, not with judgment, but with a stillness that allows the moment to fully become what it is. For death, like all crossings, requires acknowledgement, not to change it, not to soften it, but to give it shape, to allow it to exist as something real, without denial, without resistance, without turning away. The dead do not all pass in the same way. Some move quickly. Their crossing is immediate, almost seamless. They pass from one state into another without lingering at the threshold. Others remain, not by choice, but because something within them has not yet released what it held. A memory, a presence, a connection that resists being left behind. These are the ones who remain closest to her, not because she draws them, but because they exist where she always has, in the in-between. She does not bind them, she does not keep them from moving on, but she does not abandon them either. She stands with them in the moment where they are no longer what they were, but not yet what they will become. There is a quiet dignity in this, to be present at the threshold of death, without fear, without urgency, without the need to resolve what cannot be resolved. She does not rush the crossing, she does not delay it, she allows it to unfold, as all transitions must. There is something deeply human in the way the living respond to death. They seek to define it, to contain it, to give it meaning that can be understood. But death resists this. It does not fit easily into language. It does not settle into certainty. It remains in many ways unknowable, and she exists within that unknowable space, not to explain it, but to remain there without needing to hold the moment where understanding fails, and where presence is the only thing that remains. The dead do not speak to her, they do not ask, they do not answer, but they pass through the space she holds, and in that passing, something is acknowledged. Not their life, not their story, but their crossing. The fact that they have moved from one state into another, and that this movement matters, even if it cannot be fully understood, even if it leaves behind questions that cannot be answered. She does not follow them beyond the threshold. That is not her place. She remains where the crossing occurs, where the world of the living meets what lies beyond it, where presence fades into something quieter, where what was becomes something else. There is no finality in her presence, no sense of ending, only transition, continuous, unavoidable, and always unfolding. To stand where she stands is to understand something difficult. That death is not a single moment, but a passage, and that within that passage there is a space, silent, unseen, unnamed, where something changes forever, and she is always there, not as a guide, not as a judge, but as the one who does not turn away, even when everything else has, even when the world moves on, even when the living forget. She remains, at the edge of what can no longer remain, and what has not yet fully become, watching, quietly, as every life passes through her. Worlds do not change all at once, they shift, gradually, quietly, not through sudden endings, but through slow transformations, where what once was begins to take on a different shape. Names change first, then meanings, then the way something is understood, without ever fully losing what it was before. When the Greek world began to soften into something else, when its gods crossed into new lands and new languages, they did not disappear. They translated. And in translation, something is always altered. Hecate did not resist this movement. She did not remain fixed in one place, bound to one people, one way of being known. For she had never belonged to a single place. She existed in the spaces between. And so, when the world itself began to shift, when one culture crossed into another, when old boundaries gave way to new structures, she was already there, at the threshold between them. The Romans did not encounter her as something entirely foreign. They recognized her, not completely, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to feel that she already belonged, in some quiet way, within their world. And so she was carried across, not as she had been, but as she could be understood. Her name changed, or rather it unfolded into something else. Trivia. A name that speaks of three ways, three roads, three directions meeting at a single point. It is not a departure from what she was, it is a reflection. Another attempt to hold within language what cannot be fully contained. In this new world, she remained at the crossroads. But the crossroads itself had changed. No longer only paths through wilderness or open land. Now they were part of a growing order. Roads carved with intention, cities structured with purpose, movement guided not only by instinct, but by design. And yet, even in this order, the crossroads remained uncertain. For no matter how carefully a road is built, it must still divide. It must still offer more than one direction. And in that division, the same question arises: where to go, what to choose, what to leave behind. The Romans understood this, perhaps not in the same way as those before them, but in their own way. They placed her at these intersections, not always as a distant presence, but as something acknowledged, marked, given form. Small statues, offerings, signs that this place is not entirely ordinary, that it holds something more than movement, something that should not be passed without recognition. She did not change in essence. But the way she was approached did. She became more defined, more named, more placed within the structure of a world that sought to understand through order. And yet, even within that order, she remained elusive. For no matter how clearly something is defined, it cannot fully contain what exists between definitions. The Roman world, with all its structure, its clarity, its insistence on boundaries, still required what lay between those boundaries, still depended on crossings, on transitions, on moments where one state gives way to another. And so she remained, not altered, but reframed, seen through a different lens, held within a different language, but still present in the same spaces, at the edge of what is known, at the meeting point of what has been and what is becoming. There is something quiet in this transformation. No conflict, no resistance, no loss, only movement, from one understanding into another, from one world into the next. She does not belong to Greece. She does not belong to Rome. She belongs to the space between them, the moment where one becomes the other, where meaning shifts but does not disappear, where identity changes but does not end. This is her nature, to exist within transition, to remain present as the world redefines itself, and to witness without interruption the slow unfolding of what cannot remain the same. The name changes, the form shifts, the world moves forward. And still she remains. At every crossing, in every translation, in every moment where something familiar becomes something else. Not lost, not replaced, but transformed. And in that transformation, she is exactly where she has always been, waiting, at the edge of one world, as it becomes another. A name can reveal, but it can also conceal. When something is given a new name, it is not simply renamed, it is seen again from a different angle, through a different understanding. What remains is not identical, though it is not entirely new. It is altered, shifted, reframed. When she became known as Trivia, it was not a transformation, it was an interpretation. The Romans did not invent her. They encountered her and understood her in their own way. And what they saw, what they chose to name, was the crossing of three ways. Not the vastness of her nature, not the depth of her presence, but the point where paths divide. Three roads meeting, three directions opening. A place where movement is no longer singular. This is what the name holds, Trivia, three ways. It is a simple name, almost too simple. And yet, within it, something essential remains. For the crossroads, in its most complete form, is never only one path dividing into two. It is a convergence, a meeting of multiple directions, each carrying its own possibility, its own consequence. To stand at such a place is not to face a single choice, it is to face many. Some seen, some unseen, some understood, others only felt. This is where the name Trivia finds its truth, not in the number 3 itself, but in what it suggests. Multiplicity. The presence of more than one direction, more than one outcome, more than one version of what may become. And she stands at the centre of this multiplicity, not as a ruler, not as a guide, but as the presence that makes the moment real. The Romans placed her at intersections, where roads met and divided, where travellers paused, if only briefly, to decide where to go. These were not sacred places in the traditional sense, no grand temples, no distant altars, but small, marked spaces. Simple, unassuming, and yet not ordinary. For to pass through such a place is to enter a moment of decision, to move from one path into another. And in that movement, something is left behind, even if it is only the possibility of the path not taken. Trivia does not choose for those who stand at the crossroads. She does not reveal which path is right. She does not prevent what may follow. She remains at the centre, where all directions are still possible, where the future has not yet settled into form. There is something quieter in this name, less vast, less shadowed, more defined, but not diminished. For in naming her Trivia, the Romans did not reduce her, they focused her. They drew attention to one aspect of her presence, the one that can be felt most immediately. The moment of choice, the instant where movement becomes direction, and direction becomes consequence. It is a name that belongs to the surface of things, to the visible crossing, to the place where roads meet and part. But beneath that surface, she remains as she always has been, not confined to the crossroads, but present in every threshold, every transition, every moment where something divides into what will be and what will not. The name Trivia does not contain her. It reflects her. As a mirror reflects only what is placed before it, a single angle, a single truth, within a presence that holds many. And perhaps there is something fitting in this, that she, who exists in multiplicity, would be known by many names, each one incomplete, each one reaching towards something that cannot be fully held. Hecate, trivia, different sounds, different meanings, and yet the same presence. Standing where paths divide, where decisions take shape, where the world opens, briefly, into more than one possibility. She does not change with the name, she does not become something else, but the way she is seen shifts. And in that shifting, something is revealed. That no single name can hold her entirely, that no single understanding can define her, that she exists not in one form, but in many, not as separate identities, but as reflections of the same truth, that the world is never singular, that every moment holds more than one direction, and that at the centre of those directions, she remains, unmoving, unclaimed, watching as each path is chosen, and each possibility quietly disappears. There are things the human mind does not easily accept, not because they are hidden, but because they cannot be fixed into clear shape. What cannot be clearly seen begins to trouble. What cannot be fully understood begins to shift into something else. Suspicion, fear. Over time, what was once simply unknown becomes something imagined, and what is imagined rarely remains gentle. Hecate had never been easy to define. She did not belong to a single place. She did not act in ways that could be predicted. She did not offer the clarity that other gods provided. She existed in the spaces between, and those spaces are rarely comfortable. As the world grew more ordered, more structured, more defined, there was less tolerance for what could not be contained. The boundaries became sharper, the distinctions clearer. Light separated itself more firmly from darkness, the living from the dead, the known from the unknown. And in this sharpening, the spaces between began to feel unsettling. Not because they had changed, but because the world around them had. Where once the threshold was simply a place of transition, it became a place of uncertainty. Where once the crossroads was simply a moment of choice, it became a place of hesitation, of doubt, of unease. And she, who had always remained there, began to be seen differently, not as a presence, but as a question. And questions, when left unanswered, do not remain neutral. They gather weight, they invite interpretation, and often that interpretation leans toward fear. Her association with night deepened this, for the night is not only darkness, it is the absence of certainty, the removal of what can be clearly seen, and in that absence the mind feels what it cannot perceive. Shadows take shape, silence becomes presence, the unknown begins to feel intentional. She did not change, but the way she was perceived did. Where once she had been the witness of crossings, she became, in the imagination of many, something that dwelled within them, something that belonged to what could not be explained, to spirits, to the unseen, to what lingers beyond the boundaries of ordinary life. These associations were not entirely untrue, but they were incomplete, and in that incompleteness something was lost, for what is not fully understood is easily reshaped. Simplified, distorted. The quiet presence becomes something darker. The witness becomes something that watches with intent. The threshold becomes something to be feared rather than crossed. This is how misunderstanding grows, not from falsehood alone, but from fragments of truth taken without context. She became, in some tellings, a figure of dread, a presence invoked not in quiet recognition, but in fear, not as a companion of transitions, but as something that lurked within them. And yet, beneath these perceptions, nothing had changed. She still stood at the thresholds, still remained at the crossroads, still moved within the spaces where one state becomes another, unmoved by how she was named, unchanged by how she was imagined. There is a quiet irony in this, for fear itself is a kind of threshold, a moment where the known gives way to the unknown, where certainty dissolves, where the mind stands at the edge of something it cannot fully grasp, and in that moment she is present, not as the cause of fear, but as the space in which it arises. The misunderstanding does not remove her. It reveals something else, that humans, when faced with what they cannot contain, often reshape it into something they can respond to. Even if that response is fear, even if that shape is not entirely true. She does not correct this. She does not resist it. She remains. As she always has, in the space between what is real and what is believed, between what is seen and what is imagined. And perhaps that is why the fear never fully settles, why it never becomes complete, because something within it recognizes that what it fears is not entirely what it seems, that beneath the shadow there is still the threshold, still the crossing, still the presence that does not harm but does not comfort, only watches, only remains, and allows the world to pass through its own uncertainty, unchanged, unclaimed, and still misunderstood. Time does not erase, it reshapes. What once belonged to temples and whispered rituals does not disappear when the world changes. It moves. It settles into different forms, different languages, different ways of being understood. And sometimes it becomes quieter. Hecate did not vanish with the ancient world. She did not remain behind in ruined sanctuaries or forgotten roads. She passed through, as she always has, from one age into another, from one understanding into the next. But the modern world is different. It seeks clarity, definition, certainty. It builds boundaries not only in land and law, but in thought. It separates what is real from what is imagined, what is known from what is dismissed. And yet even here the spaces between remain, perhaps more hidden, but not gone. A person stands at a moment of decision, uncertain which direction to take. A pause lingers before a word is spoken. A quiet unease settles in a place that cannot be explained. These are not named as thresholds anymore, but they are felt, and where they are felt, she remains. In the modern imagination, she appears in fragments, in stories, in symbols, in quiet references that echo something older than they seem. She is called upon in practices that attempt to reconnect with what has been forgotten, invoked in ways that are sometimes careful and sometimes uncertain, reimagined through lenses that do not always fully hold her nature. Sometimes she is made darker than she is, sometimes lighter, sometimes simplified into something that can be easily understood, but she resists this, not through refusal, but through presence. For no matter how she is reshaped, she continues to exist where she always has, in the moment of crossing. And the modern world, for all its structure, is filled with crossings, more than ever, lives that shift direction, identities that change over time, decisions that carry unseen consequences, movements from one way of being into another, without clear boundaries between them. These are not marked by stone or ritual, but they are no less real. And in these moments, something ancient returns, not as memory, but as feeling. A sense that the moment matters, that something is ending, that something is beginning. That one stands, briefly, in a space that does not belong entirely to either. This is where she is, not as a figure from the past, but as a presence within the present, unchanged, unmoving, even as everything around her continues to transform. There is a quiet persistence to this, a refusal to disappear, not because she resists time, but because she exists outside of what time alters. She is not bound to belief, not dependent on recognition, not diminished by misunderstanding, for the threshold remains, whether it is named or not. The crossroads exists, whether it is marked or not. The moment of transition occurs, whether it is understood or not, and she remains within all of these. There is something almost invisible about her now, not hidden, but overlooked. For the modern world often moves too quickly to linger at thresholds, too quickly to feel the weight of transition, too quickly to recognise the space between what was and what is becoming. And yet, the moment still exists. It cannot be removed, it can only be passed through. And in that passing, however brief, she is there, not asking to be remembered, not demanding to be understood, only present, as she has always been. At every crossing, in every hesitation, in every quiet awareness that something has changed. The modern imagination does not fully hold her. But it does not need to, for she does not belong to imagination. She belongs to experience. To the moment itself, to the silent, fleeting space where the world shifts and does not return to what it was. And as long as such moments exist, as long as there are thresholds, decisions, transitions, and unseen crossings, she will remain. Not as a memory of the past, but as a presence within the present. Waiting, unseen, at the edge of what is about to become. There is no end to her story, not in the way stories are meant to end. No final act, no closing image that gathers everything into a single finished meaning. Because she was never something that could be completed. She exists where completion does not hold, at the edge of every ending and every beginning that follows it. To speak of her is to speak of moments that do not last. Brief crossings, quiet transitions, instants so small they are often overlooked, yet large enough to alter everything that comes after. A door opening, a word spoken, a decision made, a step taken. None of these feel like endings, none of them feel like beginnings, and yet they are both, at once. This is where she remains, not in the event itself, but in the space it passes through. The unseen interval where something changes without announcing itself. She is not memory. She does not belong to the past, though she has been carried through it. She is not belief. She does not depend on being named, or understood, or even recognized. She is not presence in the way things are present. She is the condition that allows presence to change. The moment where what is becomes something else. This is why she cannot be held in a single image, why every attempt to define her, goddess, guide, queen, shadow, feels incomplete. Each name touches her, none contain her, for she is not a figure within the world, she is the space through which the world moves. Every life passes through her, not once, but endlessly, in ways too small to notice, in ways too large to ignore. The first choice, the last breath, the quiet turning point that changes everything without ever being seen. She does not judge these moments, she does not shape them, she does not decide what follows, she remains. Unmoved, unclaimed, present at every crossing. There is something unsettling in this, that nothing passes unnoticed. Even when no one is there to see it, even when the world continues as though nothing has changed, the moment itself is held, witnessed, not remembered, but not lost. This is her quiet permanence, not as a figure who endures through time, but as something that exists in every moment where time itself shifts, where one state becomes another, where something ends and something begins, and yet she offers nothing, no comfort, no certainty, no promise that the path ahead will be clear, or that what has been left behind will be understood, only the moment itself. Held, felt, unavoidable, and perhaps that is enough. To know that every crossing, no matter how small, carries weight, that every transition, no matter how quiet, matters, that nothing simply happens without passing through something unseen. She does not ask to be followed. She does not ask to be believed. She does not ask to be remembered. and still she remains. In the pause before a decision, in the silence after a loss, in the instant where something shifts and cannot return to what it was. She is not waiting at the end. She is not watching from above. She is here, always here, in the space you do not notice until you are already passing through it. And even then, she does not speak, she does not reach, she does not reveal what lies ahead. She only remains, at the threshold, where everything changes, and nothing ever truly ends without becoming something else. And as the world continues, as lives unfold, as choices are made, as moments pass into what follows, she fades, not away, but into the crossing itself, where she has always been, and where she will remain, unseen, unnamed, endless, at the edge.